What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Is that actually true? Well, not exactly. Imagine you're stuck in a really toxic relationship or a job that drains every ounce of energy out of you. Every single day you come home exhausted. Finally, take a deep breath and tell yourself, well, if it doesn't kill me, it'll make me stronger. That's probably the worst conclusion you could have made. This quote gets thrown around everywhere. Gym clothes, Instagram captions, motivation videos. People use it all the time. But what if you've been misunderstanding it this whole time? The quote comes from the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, which the original line is, that which does not kill me makes me stronger. Now, he wasn't talking about deadlifts. He was talking about suffering for real. His idea was if you could endure hardship and still choose to move forward, you could become something greater than you were before. That is philosophy, not biology. Nobody ran experiments to prove Nietzsche right, but more than a century later, science actually found something that looks kinda similar. There's a biological principle called hormesis. It describes something really simple actually. A small dose of stress can make your body stronger. Too much of that exact same stress starts damaging it. Our best example here is exercise. When you lift, you're creating microscopic tears in your muscles. This is controlled injury. Your body repairs those tiny tears and rebuilds the muscle thicker and stronger than before. That is hormesis. But what happens if you train way too hard every single day with no recovery? You don't become stronger, you get injured. You overtrain and break down. Same stress, different dose. You can see the exact same principle elsewhere. A little sunlight is healthy. Too much can damage your skin. Short periods of fasting may have benefits. Starvation kills you. Stress isn't magically good or bad. The dose is what changes everything. Now that's biology. But psychology has something similar, and it's called stress inoculation training. It is instead of throwing someone into overwhelming stress, psychologists expose them to small, controlled amounts of stress while giving them support and strategies to deal with it. It's like learning public speaking. You don't start by giving a speech in front of 10,000 people. You practice, mess up, and improve. That's exposure therapy, and it works the same way for certain phobias. Now, have you noticed something? The stress itself isn't what helps. It's the right amounts under the right conditions. Now, the emotional part. In the 90s, psychologists introduced the concept of post-traumatic growth. What's that? Researchers noticed that after surviving major shit like serious illness, disaster, losing someone they loved, or anything traumatic, some people reported positive psychological changes. Some developed deeper relationships, discovered a clearer sense of purpose. Others became more appreciative of life or more confident in their ability to face future challenges. This is real and it's been studied. But listen up, post-traumatic growth is not the automatic result of trauma. It happens when people have things like safety, social support, time to process what happened. That part matters a lot, and more than anything, because once you remove those conditions, the story changes completely. See, chronic severe stress doesn't usually make people stronger, but it creates something called allostatic load, where stress hormones stay elevated, which is not good for your body. Higher risks of cardiovascular disease, a weakened immune system, depression, anxiety, burnout. All of this is caused by the same stress system. It's just pushed way beyond the point where it can physically adapt. The same thing happens psychologically. Without safety or support, severe trauma is much more likely to lead to PTSD. And here's something very important. PTSD and post-traumatic growth aren't opposites. One person can have both, but that growth is not the default outcome of suffering. It's something that can happen under the right conditions, as we said. Without those conditions, trauma often leaves lasting psychological wounds instead. Another reason this quote sounds so convincing is the survivorship bias. Who do you think is out there saying what doesn't kill you makes you stronger? It's usually the people who survived something difficult and eventually found meaning in it, not the people who were screwed by it. These people who were permanently harmed, these people who developed PTSD, who never fully recovered, whose lives were completely changed. You rarely hear from them. When we only hear from the survivors who grew stronger, we start believing that's what always happens. Let me just say, it doesn't. And sometimes, some experiences simply take something from you and give you nothing in return. Like a traumatic brain injury doesn't make you stronger. Untreated grief doesn't magically make you stronger. Staying in an abusive relationship doesn't make you stronger. Living for years inside a toxic workplace doesn't also make you stronger. Surviving something isn't the same as benefiting from it. Those are two completely different things, and you have to open your eyes and tell the difference. That's why you need to develop a clear vision of what's actually helping you grow and what's slowly destroying you. The sooner you recognize the difference, the better chance you have of protecting yourself. Because if you misunderstood this quote, you might end up sacrificing your own mental health, your safety, or years of your life believing the suffering is secretly making you stronger when it's just hurting you. Also, don't compare yourself to someone who survived a toxic environment and somehow came out stronger. Your threshold isn't theirs. Biologically, we're different. Psychologically, too. What one can recover from might completely overwhelm someone else, and that's okay. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. So, was Nietzsche wrong? Not entirely, but the internet definitely oversimplified what he meant. Growth from struggle is real, but it isn't automatic. It isn't free, and it's not guaranteed. It's the right amount of stress at the right time with the right support. Because in the end, it's not suffering itself that makes you stronger. It's what happens after the suffering and whether you were given the chance to heal instead of simply taking that shit and staying silent. That's it. Take care.